Dying Light 2's parkour system is, in my personal opinion, one of the best parkour mechanics in any game. Now, I'm not saying the first Dying Light game's parkour is bad, but what I'm saying is there's something about Dying Light 2's parkour system that just simply feels smooth and very satisfying. Dying Light 2's parkour was a little bit off when it was first released, I will admit. It had this odd feeling of low gravity every time you were in the air. Many players have complained about this floaty movement and low gravity feeling towards it. However, Techland has specifically stated that this was meant to be used as a way to help newer players to get used to the mechanics of the parkour system. But there were certain players that got used to the game's mechanic and simply wanted the floating feeling to it be removed, because occasionally it caused the game to sort of be more floaty and be very slow. But eventually, Techland came in and brought us the update that made parkour to what it is today. A almost perfect masterpiece that cannot be forgotten. Dying Light 2's parkour, compared to the first game, is far faster and is far responsive and requires a bit more precision. A tiny mistake can lead to your demise. The zombies and the humans are not the ones that kill you, but rather gravity itself. Old Villedor is simply a training ground for those who are new to the game or are not particularly experienced with this game's parkour mechanics. Meanwhile, the central loop, on the other hand, is far less friendlier to those who aren't even remotely experienced, and it tests the player's skill on how they perform. The point I'm really trying to say is, Old Villedor is a place to let the beginners understand the basics and know what combos they can perform, and what it is possible and what's not possible. Even as a low-level player, at this very specific height can lead to death or losing 90% of your health. Meanwhile, for max players, this height means nothing to us. And I think it's interesting to me that whenever I look at Old Villedor, it sort of makes me think that all of us, including me, we were nothing but another weak little human that can't handle the parkour or the harsh enemies that surrounds Old Villedor. But later on, as time progresses, it feels like the city is just cannot simply contain us because of how stronger we are. The height and the distance between the buildings and the floor are not particularly far apart. There are many monkey bars and many ropes that are just like hanging around to assist the players when they aren't really particularly comfortable with the mechanic. Meanwhile, experienced players can either use them or just simply ignore them completely, because there's so many ways to go through them in a much more quicker pace. Old Villedor is still an amazing place to parkour around. Even at high levels, being able to traverse through the city extremely fast due to buildings being short and brings nothing but satisfaction to me. And Central Loop, on the other hand, being far more bigger and the buildings being further apart and taller, it can cause Aiden to sort of be in a position where he needs to be more precise, and the same thing applies to the players. And the buildings being intentionally close together allows players to either wall run them or being able to swing around like Spider-Man. There's so many ways to go through a specific route. Even though me having 800 hours in the game, there's so many ways to approach the same route in a different way. Sometimes I run through it, or I sometimes swing through it with the grappling hook, or I sometimes just fly through it with the glider. It just sort of depends on how the players think, and their thoughts, of course. And some glide through, some simply parkour through it. It just depends on how the players think and their current position, because it doesn't matter how many times you play the game, you will always approach the same route in a more different way. Like I said, you either parkour your way through, you swing your way through, or you glide your way through. But let's also not mention the beautiful song that it plays in the background. The guy who made the music deserves to be more recognized and have more love, as him being the main composer and making these themes, it just brings nothing but joy to my face. and he deserves more love than ever because of how satisfying and charming the music is. Because a nice, charming, and energetic theme that encourages you to push your skills beyond your limits, that's what the music is. As you get better, the music intensifies and forces you to keep going. But as you move fast and make quick turns and as you're flying around through the city, you feel unstoppable, but eventually, you fall. But that's how it is with parkour games. Regardless of how many times you played it, even at the first game, that there will always be that specific mistake that you will make that will lead you to die. But with each fall and each death sort of teaches you, and you learn that mistake and try again, and you do your best to avoid the same mistake. All the skills in Dying Light 2 are extremely helpful. There is no skill in the parkour tree that rarely feels used, or is never used. Of course, there are certain 1 or 2 perks or skills that are almost not used, but what I'm saying is almost every skill have their uses and have their own personal effectiveness. The city, both Central Loop and Old Villedor, Techland build is extremely breathtaking. When the rain comes, or especially when a specific weather comes in, it makes the entire atmosphere of the city make beautiful. Like, ever since Techland has improved the skyboxes from the Firearms update, they made Villedor and the Central Loop look extremely beautiful. Like, especially when the rain comes in, it just simply has this feeling of peace. Of course, the world is falling apart and humanity is dwindling, but what's exactly stopping us from enjoying the peace and quiet? There's so many instances where whenever the rain comes, I actually genuinely just stop and enjoy the beautiful view. And I don't think the game is getting enough love for this, but in my opinion, Dying Light 2 has a specific look to it that just simply cannot be matched in a way. But I'm getting out of topic. The beauty of Dying Light 2's parkour is mainly because of how fast you can move, and there's no restrictions on what you can do or where you can go. There is no restrictions. The city is on your hand, and you can do whatever you want with it, and move whenever you want. Plus, let's also not mention the endless combos you can do whenever you're moving around the city. Most of the time, when I'm done with the game or just simply want to close it, I just simply run around and enjoy the amazing parkour and the music it plays in the background. It brings peace to one's mind, and when you are moving around and that music that encourages you to push more, it just feels peaceful. The momentum you are able to keep is amazing. Regardless of what you do, it almost feels like you are almost or rarely slow down. And even when you do get shut down and get stunned or even slow, you're able to get that momentum instantly. It's not like there's a penalty for getting stopped. That momentum you lost, well, you can just simply get it at an instant instead of having to wait for a while. And that's what I love about it. Even when you do get stunned or slowed, you're able to move fast as you were before, without any sort of delays whatsoever. And that's what I love about it. And I know there will be some of you glue-sniffing perks that will say, "Parkour is not fun because it is so simple and too many monkey bars and feels slow and floaty." Yes, that is because you pricks are only using the paraglider and the grappling hook 90% of the time to traverse through the map. No shit, it's gonna get boring, Sherlock. The purpose of the paraglider and the grappling hook is to assist you and perhaps to use as a weapon against the enemies, hence the name, Night Runner Tools. It is a tool. It is not something you must rely on 100% of the time, but it is rather a tool to use whenever you need a bit of an assistance or on something. And the monkey bars and the certain ropes that are placed throughout the Villedor are meant to be a crutch for low-level players to use when they're not comfortable with the mechanics or they're still learning. And for experienced players, like I said, they can still use it, but they can ignore it and go through them in a much more faster pace. They can go around it, they can then go above it or under it, it doesn't matter. There's so many ways to go through it. The problem I had with the first Dying Light parkour games is it can somewhat feel a little bit outdated at certain times and can sometimes legit be forgotten all the time. Mainly because of two things: the existence of the grappling hook and the magnet effect. And yes, I know the game is from 2015, that there were certain mechanics they couldn't add, like the rope mechanics and the wall running mechanics, but so on. Unlike in Dying Light 2, where it's a tool that allows you to, where it only assists you, in the first game it just allows you to ignore the basic parkour mechanics entirely, because the grappling hook in the first game just literally pulls you, regardless of where you are. And even when you do fuck it up, you're just like, oh, let's just use the grappling hook and you're just safe to go, literally. Like, it doesn't matter how bad you are at the game's parkour mechanics, it can literally just be forgotten because the existence of the grappling hook. Let's also not mention the fact that the game did not have a wall running mechanic, and the magnet mechanic. For some of you that don't know, the magnet mechanic is where whenever you jump off a building, or you jump off a specific height that could kill you, and if there's like a car, a trash bag, or something that could prevent your fall from being lethal, the game will automatically magnet to you, like push you towards that specific area, like instantly. You have no control over it whatsoever, and you cannot turn it off in the game settings. No matter how much hours you have on the game, no matter how much experience you have, the magnet is one of the most annoying things to ever exist in the first game. But people don't really talk about it that much, which is the problem. The issue I have with the first games is the grappling hook literally just ignores the basics of the parkour, because it's just a device that just says, fuck you, I'm going to traverse through this map like easily. It requires no brain cells to even work with it. And of course you're going to be saying, well, it's a PvE game, so what do you care? Well, I played a lot of PvP, so I do care, so shut up. Like, imagine you just simply want to jump down without, like, having to land on a car or, like, you know, land on trash bags, and the game just, like, pulls you back into the fucking trash bag, and you're just sitting there like, why? Like, why'd you pull me back? I didn't want to land there to begin with. And that's the issue I had, but I'm getting out of topic. In conclusion, Dying Light 2's parkour mechanic is an amazing system that Techland was able to create, and in my opinion, they don't really get enough love about it. Like, we don't really appreciate about it too much, and in my opinion, it is a masterpiece. The sheer amount of speed and momentum you are able to get is incredible, and the endless possibility of combos and skills you can do brings a smile to my face and to other players. And the many ways to pass through a certain path is also has good amount of variety, and it depends on the player's speed and location. And the tools and the skills we have on our hand makes it even more fun and more interesting, and adds more replayability to it. And it's why I am in love with Dying Light 2's mechanic. And in my opinion, Dying Light 2 has one of the best first-person parkour mechanics in any game whatsoever. And I will never change my mind about that. Because, as ever since I've played the game from the beginning and after the parkour rework, no other game was able to bring that satisfaction or any sort of happiness to my soulless heart. And that's all I have to say. I just love Dying Light 2's parkour mechanic, and I feel like a lot of people should be more appreciative to it, because I'm sort of starting to see a trend where people are starting to do nothing but complain about it, which is saddening to me. But of course we can't make everyone happy, because everyone is different and have their own personal opinions to it. But hey, can I do anything about it? No. I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't really have anything else to say besides that. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all the best. Adios.